As I look at these buildings, I'm reminded of a story, a situation. In the 80s, in the late 80s, I was in Canada. This guy, Sam Zimmerman, in a coffee shop, chatting away. He was in his 80s. And he had an energy about him. He had an aura, I guess you'd call it back then. A certain vibration, call it what you will. But he had that about him. And he's talking. And, he's in his 80s. He looks in great shape. And at that time, Mike Tyson was in his prime. And I kind of thought, if you put Tyson in with this guy, he's going to tear Tyson's head off. That was the energy Sam Zimmerman had. And I'm chatting, and I said, where did this all begin? He had an aura about him. A confidence, not arrogance, a confidence. Where did it all begin? He said in the Great Depression, he got a job working for the city as a public toilet cleaner, scrubbing out toilets, public bathrooms. Not the most celebrated job in the world, but he was, 18, 19 years old, and he said it was a job when there weren't any. But I didn't care, and I set out to be the best toilet cleaner in the city. And he said, I made sure those toilets were spotless, beyond what I was required to do. And within 6 months, I became in charge of the whole public bathroom, not just the toilets, the sinks, the baths. Going back now, the baths, the whole thing. I was overseeing the cleaning of it all, like a supervisor position. I carried on. I made sure those were the cleanest public bathrooms in the city. And from there, I got promoted again to the head of the block, and I got promoted again. And again, and again. And I was in my early 20s, married, with a child. And I came home from work one day and told my wife I just quit my job. And, this was the time of the Great Depression. When things were hard. Way before my time. You think things are hard now? No, they're not. They're inconvenienced now. This was a time where people were having to go out on the street to get warm by burning garbage. Think about that. And he quit his job and got a job labouring in the construction industry. He got the entry-level position. He took a massive pay cut. And he told his wife, I got a job digging ditches. I'm working longer hours, I'm working harder, and I'm making less money. And his wife definitely wasn't happy at this point, but at least he got a job. But when he set out to do that job, and he told me I was determined to become the best fucking ditch digger in New York City. His words, not mine. And from digging ditches, he became a supervisor of a gang very quickly. And then a supervisor of a site. And then a project manager. And then he quit his job again. Why? Because he decided not to work for someone else. He decided to be his own boss. Because he'd been the best toilet cleaner in New York City. He'd been the best ditch digger in the city. He'd done all that. In both positions, he'd gone as far as he could go. That was it. And what I'm reminded of, Sam Zimmerman built and owned a whole bunch of buildings right here in New York City. Now I'm reminded of that story, my conversation with my great friend this morning, Mark Greenwood. And Mark and I worked together and had the same mentor, the late Pearson MacDonald. Pearson is no longer with us, but that was actually Pearson's story, it wasn't mine. But I'd heard Pearson tell it so many times that I know the story. And I can tell it, maybe not as good as him, but Pearson was the guy. Holy crap. Pearson was the guy that taught me how to speak. Why I went holy crap just then? Pearson drove one of these. Pearson drove one of those. The chances of seeing one of those are slim to none. In a month, I just walked down the block. Fuck. That's very freaky. That just freaked me out a little bit there. We were talking about stuff like this morning. So, there's another story about me driving Pearson's car. I'm not going to go into details, but let's put it like this. It had to go in the shop and get a change of colour overnight, and let's leave it at that one. So, from New York City, Pearson's not with us. If you want to work with me, work with therealtonycohen.com. I'll pass on some of his knowledge. Have yourself a fantastic day.